This is the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game.
Rule number one is you have to believe in yourself. You're the only one who doesn't think you belong in this appointment. The prospect has already validated your existence by scheduling time with you. Get it through your head you belong here, go in there, crush it, and close the deal.
A place where sales professionals can come to learn from other sales professionals and thought leaders that have mastered their craft.
The difference between a good salesperson and a best-in-class salesperson is only 2 minutes. By spending an extra 2 minutes on what you might think is a mundane task in the sales game, you separate yourselves from the pack, you grow your book of business, you close more deals, and you retain your accounts.
As well as their peers who are still striving for perfection to achieve their why.
I have a wife and 4 kids. Failure is not an option.
Real sales professionals, real stories, real results. Are you ready to feel the power?
Hey everybody, welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we do things like solve stupid problems with our countdown as it's counting down. As we moved to Riverside, I couldn't figure out why it started at 6, and now I realize that when I hit the button to start recording, it gives me a soft 4 count, and then 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for a 10-second countdown. Why don't they just start it at 10? I don't know, and we're not even going to focus any more effort or energy on that. We are pleased to have our guest, Mr. Khuram Hussain from 20 Miles today, and we're going to talk a little bit about systems and InsurTech, something that, I don't know, have we ever talked about anything like that before, Kyle?
I've never heard of the topic.
Yeah, I didn't think so. What is a CRM?
Yep.
You know what? And sadly, many agencies do not know that, though. So, with that being said, Khuram, give us the 10,000-foot overview, sort of who you are, where you came from, how you got to where you are, and then we're going to dive in and talk about your company and what you're doing to change the game.
Sure. Thank you, David. Thank you, Kyle, for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here for the opportunity. So, there's like 2 phases to my life, as I always call it. Like one is, when I was like a pre-entrepreneur, and then there's a second life when I decided, I needed to build products that would solve some problems. So let's forget the pre-entrepreneur part, but, I kind of like did engineering. And then in 2007, I founded a company called Inbox 2, which was born out of the frustration, that I was hearing from people. Everybody, always complains about email, like too much email, and I don't know how to kind of manage my inbox, and trying to solve that productivity problem. We built a product for that that got acquired by a company in LA. What I noticed there is that, a lot of the people who were complaining about email were salespeople, right? So that was my first interaction with sales guys. People who were trying to sell something. So my second company, 2011, was really focused on helping, those guys, the sales enablement, and really around the mobile experience too. So, if you're at an airport or if you're on your way, how to kind of like manage, get that contract out, just before getting on the plane, making sure that you always have access to your sales documents. That was a starting point, and then we made it easy to share and track. And during that phase, we added some tools on like customer acquisition on that too. And I saw some intake coming in from, guys who were working in the insurance industry. So insurance agents who would come in and really excited about, they want to use our product, this and that. And what happened is that, like a lot of times we would spend time and onboard them, and then we noted like, okay, there would be a bit excitement in the first couple of days, and then they'd be gone. Like, it would just go like totally silent, like there's nothing. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, and this was not the pattern with all the other type of customers that we were dealing with. So, and I started talking, trying to dig that up. And then I found that there was like just so much friction between when it comes to technology and insurance agents and producers, and our product was not designed for that. It was, kind of like, it was high tech. I mean, it was CRM/SaaS, sales enablement, but it was still too far off from, I think what an insurance agent would need it to do their job. So third time round, my third company founded last year, 20 Miles, we said, okay, we are going to reinvent, the customer experience or the CRM experience, but entirely focus on insurance producers. And specifically, actually, we're focusing on commercial insurance producers, So how do we take out the friction from, first of all, using that, something that is totally simple, dead simple, easy to use, but yet focuses on the use cases of what, a producer needs to actually, acquire and build their book of business, that being the starting point, right? Because a lot of customer data software is built around, giving management insights. Okay, what's everybody doing? Like keeping track of what everybody's doing. But the goal of a CRM should really be to help you to, win more business, right? So that's I'll kind of pause there and then.
Yeah, no, I'm interested as to what really attracted you to commercial insurance producers. I don't know very many people who come into our space and are that focused on who they're looking to solve problems for. So you did some research or you encountered those guys along the way. I'm interested in what had you focus specifically on that niche. And truthfully, we haven't really talked a ton, but that's our audience. So this is your chance to tell every single one of them the problem you're solving for them and how you're doing that. But first, why? Why commercial producers? I'm interested in what you have to say versus what I think.
Sure. Okay. So, our thinking is really that, first of all, I think if they're not, but they should be, commercial insurance, producers should be focusing on larger opportunities, larger ticket size, right? So, it's not a transactional business. It's a much more, let's say a relationship-driven business. You don't need that many accounts to build a 6 or 7 figure book of business. So you have to, strategize that, right? So, and you need to go about these opportunities in a certain way. So if you're not, going in a transactional approach, then you need to build relationships. And we felt that does not happen like in a, you flip on a switch and, you have a relationship. That requires time. So you need something that allows you to, to build relationships over time. At each step, you're kind of like making progress towards getting that sale. And, and I think there is a more official term for this in the insurance industry, like, the letter of record, right, is I think we kind of enabled those strategies as well. But ultimately, I'm sorry to say this, but, insurance is a commodity business, right? You are not going to be able to differentiate on pricing. You're probably not going to be able to differentiate on a lot of the messaging either, because everybody's kind of saying the same thing. So I think it really comes down to building that relationship. Why would somebody kind of bring you in or use you as the producer or the agent? Because they don't understand it. Your customer wants you to be their the person looking over their shoulder, but not looking over their shoulder. Like 2 weeks before renewal. They want you to be looking over the shoulder, throughout the whole process of the whole, period, right? So, and I think, in my view, technology should enable that, right? They should enable that relationship building process. And when it comes to having those conversations, that's where, you come in as the producer. So, and what I feel, and what I saw was that a lot of the software and also some of the SaaS software that people are using, a lot of agents are trying to use it. You still have to do a lot of configuration. So there's a lot of doing stuff, like trying to get the software to work, but that's not the way it should be. I think, the software should really be kind of an enabler for you. So I don't know if that.
I think one of the biggest hurdles that we have, there's actually a pretty deep divide as far as I see it. You have the 800-pound gorillas in the room like HubSpot, Infusionsoft, and Salesforce. They're extremely expensive to buy, and then when you buy them, you have nothing. You have to go out, you have to customize it, and make it do exactly what you want to do. And that also requires a significant amount of money to do that. And the reason why I can speak on that authoritatively is because I've dumped about $200,000 into HubSpot over the course of the last 2.5 years at this point to have it customized for my agency. That being said, there's also a group of CRMs that has come onto the scene in the course of the last couple of years that are more out of the box, that don't require the programming to make it custom and has some built-in campaigns and this, that, and the other. Here's where my problem is with both. The first one is that it is expensive. So the barriers to entry for an agency who wants to produce that middle market commercial business that we always talk about on the podcast, is high. You almost have to be a large established agency in order to be able to afford to do that, to make yourself that much bigger and better. So the strong get stronger in that case. Then you have the ones that are the out of the box. And being completely transparent, I don't know where you fit into the scheme of things. I'm just telling you the general landscape as I see it. But those have a gap. And the gap is that those are more designed, as it stands right now, for Main Street agencies. I think that there's a need there for something to fill that void. And what I'm hearing from you is you recognize that same opportunity, and that's what your goal is to try and fill that space. Maybe not compete with the agency Zooms of the world, but also not necessarily compete immediately with the Salesforces and the HubSpots and all of that. You fit right in between the two. Am I accurate in that assessment?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, and if I kind of look at the bigger guys, we for example integrate with Salesforce, and I think what you said there was right spot on. You invest and you buy this big software and then you still have nothing. There's a lot that you still need to do, and what we're trying to do is really align, and we're doing it in a number of ways. So one, I think, what we should not forget in this whole landscape is the AMS, right? The agency management system, right? And I don't, and I think there's some CRM systems that are a bit confused about their identity. They're trying to be, a bit of the AMS and a bit of this. And for us, it's no, the AMS is your nucleus, and we're kind of building around that, because that has very valuable information, about your current customers, which is obviously important for some of the strategies, So the way we think about it is really kind of giving you some out-of-the-box strategies, and each strategy. So what is a strategy? Strategy could be, referrals could be a strategy, right? To kind of win new business. Prospecting is a strategy, And in each, what we're doing is we're defining with tactics. So there's some out-of-the-box tactics, that we provide you, because, there are people who just want to jump in and start using the product. They are maybe not tech savvy, or they just don't want to invest the time. They just want to give it to me and I'll use it. And at the same time, we allow you.
Those are also the people that are calling you a month later asking, how come I'm not writing millions of dollars worth of business, because they buy the product looking for a magic pill or a silver bullet, right? So I just say that because I want to make sure that we temper the conversation. People, you have to understand something. None of these systems are going to sell for you. They're going to make it easy for you to sell. They're going to make you more intelligent when you sell. But I don't know of a system yet that's a sales robot that just goes out, takes the role of the producer, and completely outsources it to machine learning. It's not there. And so if you're looking at a system for your agency, you need to understand up front that it's still going to require effort on your part. This is not, and it's also not to replace the human and client experience. It's to enhance the client experience and make it better, because you're more intelligent about where somebody is in the buyer's journey, or you're more intelligent about what their needs are because they're an existing client of yours already and you're simply marketing to them for something that they don't yet have. So I'm done. I'll let you keep going.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important point that you're making there. And I think, what software is and what software should be, and especially in insurance, it's augmenting, your workflow, right? It's that assistant. Say you're on a client meeting, it's that assistant that at the office still doing the work. And that's the way we're thinking about it, so you can actually implement some of your processes, so for example, reaching out to people. We don't think in terms of campaigns, because that's like spray and pray, right? So you send out a campaign, and tracking opens. That's not relationship building. What we do talk about or think about are processes. So what we want you to do is establish some systems that are kind of like your framework. So what do we mean by that? So for example, for referrals, you sign up a new client, you could establish maybe after 4 or 5 months, certain rules like, okay, that's a time to check in and maybe ask for an NPS score, or something equivalent, right? How are we doing? Is that good? If that's positive, then we will actually say, okay, well, Kyle, it's time to roll this person into a different workflow now. So it's suggesting, you make the decision, but it's saying, hey, we're taking out the grunt work, having those, frameworks available to you, You can go left, right, or center. It's up. You make that decision still, but that you don't have to invest any more time and energy in planning that and thinking about it, and because there's a lot going on in your especially now with COVID. I think I've heard from a lot of producers that a lot of the account like the CSR work is coming their way too, because yeah, it's like, hey, because you're not interacting in the office anymore, so you have to kind of so that's the way we're thinking about it. It's it's working for you, but it is not that magic pill that's going to get you the sale. It's driving, the opportunities towards you. It's warming up that relationship, So, for example, if you wanted to do, some cold calling, which everybody says is dead, well, we say, well, why not do warm calling, right? So why not educate the target audience or buyer, with a couple of emails, because you got to position yourself. What I said is this is a commodity business. What you got to differentiate is your insights, your expertise. You have to tell the customer that you are the person that they want to be talking to, doing business with. And that's how you can do that. You can kind of build a rapport, and then pick up the phone, and that would be an entirely different conversation, right? And something like
who told you cold calling was
warm
dead?
Calling isn't, right? So that's what I say. Why not give some insights before you pick up the phone, and take that approach. So.
What's been one of the biggest challenges for you? You mentioned that there was some friction early on. You had to kind of step back and reevaluate and change some things. What's been some of the
yeah,
bigger
I think
so.
I was classified two. So one is definitely I think that what Dave alluded to in the beginning is we kind of went through that path because I came from the SaaS world, like Bay Area, Silicon Valley, and building a CRM system that a lot of the technology companies are jumping on. But that just does not work for insurance. Giving them an open skeleton, and so I think that's one mistake that we made. So that we kind of turned around. I think the other is because there are a number of products out there today, and a lot of agencies have had bad experience with it. So they were not the magic pill they were expecting. There's a lot of noise, right? So I think trying to kind of work through that has been challenging as well at some point. So in a way, I'm saying that for us to kind of, break through that noise is because there's some legacy or history already with, with experience that people have had with, some disappointing results after implementation of software and things like that. I think that's, it's been challenging for us.
I think one of the things, and I talk about it all the time, one of the things that is a big issue with the insurance industry by and large is the whole double entry of data situation has created people who don't really understand why a CRM is necessary. They don't understand the role that it plays. Agency principals, by and large, are cheap. They don't want to spend money. They typically have, in most cases, I'm not saying everybody, and we all know that anybody listening to this podcast certainly does not have a scarcity mindset. So we're talking about everybody else. Just carry on. Just keep listening.
Yeah.
But that being said, they have a scarcity mindset. They don't realize the value that it brings. And my theory on all of this is we're not an insurance agency until we sell an insurance product, period. I don't care. If I haven't sold you workers' comp, general liability, property insurance, or whatever else, any interaction that I have with you is completely irrelevant to my agency management system for all practical purposes, which is why we operate out of HubSpot, because I can monitor all of the stuff that goes on with you inside of a CRM. And I'm going to not sit here and make commercials for HubSpot because I've been very, very clear in the past, and you're not privy to knowing this, Khuram, but I don't recommend anybody go out and buy it right out of the box. We got painted into a corner, and I had a choice to make. I either doubled down and developed it, or I just paid out my contract because the reason the whole deal that caused us to buy it ended up evaporating, so I was stuck with it. I had to make the best out of what I had, which I'm not also knocking HubSpot. I think it's a great system, but it's also extremely expensive to customize if you're not a developer yourself. That being said, I think agencies need to run out of a CRM, period. If we didn't have things like certificates of insurance or producer commission reports, book of business reports, or reconciliation for accounting, those are really the major things that you need to have your agency management system for that you can't do in a CRM right now.
100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. Okay, that's what I was going to ask. If that's just like,
well, I
not
mean, I think that's the
possible,
arms
or
race, right?
you
We're
know, people
literally
haven't
in the
done it
middle
yet, or-
of an arms race
Yeah.
for whoever the first one is that comes out with the single product that is both the AMS and the CRM combined in one product. And I'm not saying that that's the right thought process, but that just seems to be what's happening right now with a lot of these people. They want to be all things to all people.
just
It
makes more
does, but the
sense.
problem is there's
Yeah.
such a race that I feel like things are getting missed in the development process. And so what you're ending up with is, it's a reasonably good CRM. It's an agency management system that'll get by. And I'm not willing to operate with mediocre products in my agency. I want a good agency management system and a good CRM. If I have to have two products, I want to have the best two products that I can have. But, we've basically eliminated all the data entry. We don't put anything at all into our AMS until that person has actually conducted a transaction with us. And at that point, it belongs in there. Until that happens, they live in the CRM.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely the way to be thinking about it. So I think that is so in a prospect phase, that's where somebody should be living in, right? Because until they become a client, I don't think there's anything they need to do in a AMS system. What I've heard from a lot of like the people that we've spoken to, a couple of the larger AMS agency management systems have quote like bolted on CRM functionality, right? So it's always an afterthought, and that's the problem, because like they started off with building maybe something the AMS system, and at some point realized, or there were maybe some key customers that wanted some type of CRM functionality, and it's always like an afterthought. Despite being, they're having probably the insights and the resources, to both sides of the data, right? Some of the companies now, I think, are, like Vertafore and now Certs are, definitely very more open. So they're actually exposing their data through APIs. So that's, really forward thinking. That's great news for us because, we, like I told you, for us, the AMS system is the nucleus, right? So, so that's one way. Why is that important from the client side? If we wanted to, what we want to do is retain clients, right? So what we're trying to do is we just don't think about CRM functionality only on prospects, but we also think, okay, how do we proactively, or as Brent Kelly calls this, like being intentional about it, right? I think that's what we're trying to enable with producers. Everybody knows what they need to do. Everybody knows what they have to say once they have somebody on the call, But it's about managing that, your day to day, right? And I think that's where the problem is. So clients, and having a systematic, approach to referrals. Why does it have to be limited to, okay, well, I happen to be in town and I'm going to have lunch with David today. So, and once we're done with our steak or something, then I'm going to ask for a referral. Why can't it be, like building that relationship on an ongoing basis, on a weekly basis or bi-weekly, and then, getting that flow of referrals? Why not? So I think that's why the AMS system is very important. And to your point, David, when it's a cold prospect where we're still trying to break in, that's when it lives in our system. So we always think of this integration bidirectionally. There comes a point when you have a meeting and somebody's ready to, sign somewhere. That's the moment that you say, okay, now I'm sending this to the AMS system. But all the activity, but it's bidirectional. So, even in the future, it would be available in the AMS system. But you kind of like, keep on. At this point, I'll kind of like, refer or take a step back and tell you 20 miles, right? Where does that...
Give me 1 second because I've got really bad ADHD, and if I don't say this now, I will forget to say it. You bring up a very good point that I think that a lot of agencies miss, and that is using your CRM to continue to not just market, but stay in communication with your existing clients. And I hear it all the time that agencies, complain, oh, I lost this account. I did everything I could. I lost this account, and it's because the other agent had a learning management system, and yet I sit here and I pay for Think HR all year, and they never used it, and now they left me, and that other person came in with the exact same tool I have. Here's the deal, people. If you're not using your CRM to communicate with your clients, tell them what the capabilities are that your agency has for them. If you're not telling them what you can do for them or reinforcing what you promised to deliver at the point of sale, your book of business is at risk. It is an easy way for you to stay in communication with your clients. The other thing is that I was thinking about when you were talking, let's think about something as simple as sending out a basic email. Like, we want to send out a marketing email to 1,000 people, right? That we've got these 1,000 leads in our CRM. We want to send an email out to them. If you don't have a CRM to do that with, if you're just going to send out a mail merge or something else, and you don't have the ability to monitor open rates, click-through rates, and all of that, never mind the fact you should be doing A/B testing with different subject lines and everything else to maximize your opens. You know, it's insane to think that people are flying blind and wondering why they're not getting results. Agents that are in Main Street agencies, I don't mean Main Street as a negative connotation, but I would say old school in terms of thought process. They've been around a while. They'll write anybody that comes in the front door. It doesn't matter what limits you want. It doesn't matter what size your business is. Maybe if it gets too big, they don't have the right carriers or offerings. But for all practical purposes, they're where people go to buy insurance, that are thinking about buying insurance. They're not doing this stuff. Most of them are not doing this stuff. And they wonder and they complain and they say that the big brokers that are out there, the regionals, the IOAs, the USIs, the Brown and Browns, all of these people are taking business from them, and it's based off the fact that they have unlimited resources, that they have corporate jets, they can get tickets to concerts and ball games. You know what? Some of that crap happens in the sales game, but let me tell you people exactly why you're losing business. It's because you have no strategy in place to tell your clients what it is you're doing for them or can do for them that they're not using. And an easy way to do that is to use your CRM. Now we can step back because I got that out of my head. And let's talk about 20 miles.
Well, actually, that kind of fits in very well with what I wanted to say with 20 miles. So, the name kind of like stems, and it's kind of a life philosophy that I've used, it goes back to the South Pole expedition, in the previous century. So you had two teams racing to the South Pole, the British and the Norwegians. And they did, all their prep, and, the goal was who's going to get to the South Pole and, come back, obviously, in one piece, right? And so the Norwegians had a strategy where they, did all the preparation, but as they were kind of going, to the South Pole, they said, okay, we're going to do our 20 miles every single day, So if the weather is good, if the weather is bad, it doesn't matter. We will do the 20 miles and we'll stop. And then the next day they would continue to do the 20 miles. The British, however, were a bit more haphazard. So they would, do 10 miles. And then if the weather was, bad, they might do 2 miles. So it was kind of all over the place, right? And so, the end result, the Norwegians, went back and came back all alive. The British, only 3 guys kind of were able to reach the South Pole. And the 3 guys then died on the way, coming back, right? So what's the lesson here? It's really, 20 miles is being persistent and consistent every single day. You need to do your 20 miles. As a producer, you need to do your 20 miles. You need to do your 20 miles for prospecting, but and what you just said, you need to do your 20 miles for your client relationship management as well, So it's essentially what we're trying to to enable with, and where the name really comes from is, doing your 20 miles in relationship building, At the end of the day, you're going to have those conversations. You understand the business, but we just want that system to make sure that you are not forgetting and that you stay on top of your game. When it comes to doing those 20 miles every single day.
Well, I can tell you, as an agency principal, I want to see record that my producers have been doing that too, right? I mean, I'm not a micromanager by any stretch, but if I start feeling a little pressure, meaning I'm looking that somebody's not brought business on the books in a little bit. I need to understand what's going on. It's very easy for me to go into my CRM and make sure that they have done everything that I've asked them to do. And as the owner of the company, as long as I can go into my CRM dashboard and I can see that the telephone calls have been made, that the cold call marketing drops have been made, that there's notes on the accounts in there, and all of the other things that we expect from our producers that we have created sequences around, you're not going to hear me complain about it, because I understand that if the behaviors are happening, the money is going to follow. It's a proven process, period. The only time that it doesn't happen is when somebody says, oh, well, this isn't really working, so I'm not going to be consistent with it anymore. I'm just going to go ahead and do my own thing for a couple of days. Then that doesn't work, and they get cold feet, and they jump back and do it the way they should have, but they lost all the momentum they had built and they had never realized was there. And I think it's interesting because a lot of agency owners, we have a gut feeling and we operate off of, quote, gut feeling. But the problem is we don't have a way to quantify that. We don't have a way to quantify our gut feeling. CRMs give us the ability to do that in a very scientific way for all practical purposes. I mean, one of the things we do is we use lead scoring in our agency. We understand that if people go to our website, that they should get, points for that. We understand based on which links they click, they should get a certain number of points, how much time they spend on a page, how many pages they visit. And I can tell you that if I capture your IP address and I know who you are and you're going into my website and you click on that pricing link, you just hit the gold standard for the highest number of points I can give you in your lead score, because that tells me that if you're clicking pricing, you want to know how much I cost, and it's an activity that somebody who's ready to buy something or at least having a buying conversation would do. I just don't even know how the agencies that don't have the ability to do that have been so successful. Kudos to them. They just must work really, really hard and long hours and nights and weekends to make that happen, because I can't do it. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough bandwidth. I have to have a tool that's going to give me all of that information. Then when I print out a report, I know how to read that report and make a decision about what needs to happen in my business as a result. But if I didn't have that, we probably wouldn't even be sitting here talking right now. I'd be back stocking pork and beans at the grocery store.
Well, that may be extreme, but to your point, I think that is true. So being systematic about it is really key. And I think what we have to understand is you just have to be patient about it and follow the system, because if you keep doing follow the system and doing the 20 miles, you're going to it's going to start compounding. Your efforts are going to start compounding, because you're kind of like doing multiple touches, maybe through some kind of a sequence. Then you've got calls to actions. You might be doing some other things. It's all part of a system, so whatever system that is for your agency or your target audience, when you define your, like persona, I think, sticking to that is very important too. And that's typical, like, where people like, oh, they feel the pressure, I need to show results. So it does require leadership, and I think you kind of like, get that. I'm not sure if all the agency principals kind of like are going to give the runway, to somebody. But I think that is important, because, and at the end of the day, the producer, should be holding himself accountable as well, right? Because, I mean, who are you trying to fool? If you're not putting in the activity, but I think what we're saying is that activity does not have to be stressful, the whole day or the whole time. It can, you can have systems in place now in 2021 that kind of do the work for you, and so you can really focus on that. 20% conversations, that are going to get you, through the finish line.
Yeah. So my question is to you.
The other thing that I think is, sorry, I was just going to double down on what you said. I think the one thing that's important to drive home is that when you've got a CRM and you've got a set sales process and system where they're segmented, so you can move each deal through this, through this pipeline, it allows you to identify where the holes in the game struggling, and they are whatever, maybe they're losing the deal every time after the presentation, or maybe they're not even getting there. It allows you to figure out which part of the sales process is lacking, and fix it from there. And I think that's important, and sometimes is overlooked with all of the bells and whistles that come along with CRMs, but it's a basic principle.
Yeah, what I was going to say is this, you can't start out going 20 miles day one, right? I mean, you can't go 20 miles in one thing, let alone 5 things. So, is somebody, in the advice that I give anybody, when people say, hey, David, looking to put a CRM in my agency, what do you think? What's the best system? I said the best system's whichever one you're actually going to use.
Yeah.
You could have Salesforce, you could have the gold standard in your agency, but if nobody picks up, and uses it, it's worthless to you. It doesn't make any sense. So what I mean by what I said was, if you're going into an agency that's had nothing, there's no way they're going to take off running day number 1. So what would your advice be for an agency that's looking at evaluating bringing a CRM into their agency? What would you advise them as far as the ramp up? What should they expect realistically? Because I think what happens is marketing gets so sensationalized that people believe what the marketing message says. It's like, I would equate it to this. I think there are a lot of insurance agency principals out there that still think that the WWE is real, right? Now, it's sensationalized. It's not even remotely close to being a real sport, but yet we were we were led to believe that as we were growing up, right? I mean, my heart was probably more broken when I found out that wrestling was fake than when I found out Santa Claus didn't exist. But I think that's the method. I think that's the corner that we paint these people into, is we have this sensationalized advertising that makes it look like, because we have an I want it now on-demand society, that all you have to do is sign up. We're going to have you do a demo on demand. You're going to see how it works on demand. And we're going to put this software in on demand. And then they do that and nothing happens. And the expectations weren't set correctly from the beginning. And putting a CRM into a company that doesn't have a sales culture where it needs to be. Take technology and products and throw it out the window. If you don't have the sales culture right, you got to fix that. Don't put otherwise you're putting tools into a bad culture. It's a disaster. But let's assume they have that sales culture right, or they're working on getting it to where it needs to be. And they say, look, I want to bring a CRM in, and I specifically want to bring 20 miles in. What does your advice look like to an agency principal that wants your software but wants realistic expectations set for what they need to do, the amount of effort they need to put in on the front end to get it to where it needs to be?
Yeah. So I think the short answer there is focus. So I think you can't do everything. And that focus has to be at a number of different levels. So one is, okay, let's not try and go after all the strategies in one go, right? So we got to focus either, are we going to try and get more referral business? Are we going to try to make sure that we increase our retention numbers? Are we going to say, okay, we're going to prospect for new business? So definitely choose at least one of those strategies. And after that, even within there, I think, making sure that anybody and everybody is your client, but definitely, defining your, the top 50 or the 100 or 150 that you want to kind of go after. And this comes back to the commercial insurance again, right? So rather, we're not talking about transactional sales. We want to break into to some bigger fish, and build relationships over time. So identifying the accounts that you want to go after, and then, within that strategy, whether it's, getting more referrals, or is it, for prospecting. And I think that's the starting point. And from a technology perspective, then what we do, is with the onboarding, we make sure that we support you all the way to, until you get your first success, because I think that's important. 20 miles, but the gratification should not be delayed, that long. I think you should see some telltale signs in the first couple of weeks. That doesn't mean that you may have closed the sale, but you're having conversations, you're having more meetings. You can see a pattern, right? If you do X amount of activity, that's resulting in X amount of meetings. That means, if you increase that, activity level, you're going to increase the amount of meetings you're getting out of it too. And then I'm sure you know the sales math, right? Like, you need like 20 meetings. That will get you 10 opportunities and about 3 or 4, closed deals. So you kind of like ramp up to those numbers. But I think it's important to focus on a single strategy initially, and not try to do everything in your CRM.
In your opinion, what's the best single strategy to start with? Is it a campaign to existing clients? Is it an email campaign or something to prospects? What, in your answer can be different things for different agencies. I might say that's a cop out. So, but what do you think, what would your advice be for a good place to start?
Yeah, I would say, referrals is a very good one because it's killing, like two birds, with one stone. Why? Because in our view, the referral, process should really start with asking, checking in with your existing client. How happy are they with you? Because if they're not, you might have just saved a sale. If you just discover that they're not happy with you, so so that can actually also kind of like trickle down retention numbers, right? So if they're not happy with you, and we've got like a very subtle way of doing that, trying to understand, who's happy and who's not, and who's at churn risk, etc. And then and obviously the guys who are happy with you, they're we know that insurance is a referral business, right? So I think that is a winning strategy any day. So that's where we typically would advise to start. And then there's you may have some dream accounts that you want to get in, and then that would be a different strategy for prospecting and things like that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of validity in what you say, because many people are afraid to ask for a referral. And I don't even understand that. I think that some people have a bigger mental block about asking for a referral than they do cold calling on complete strangers. If you've gone in and done a great job for somebody, why are you embarrassed to ask if you can go do a great job for somebody else they know? You make yourself a little bit of coin, right, and you make them look good for referring you in. But, again, it's just like having a strategy around telemarketing and cold calling. People don't like dialing the phone, period. They hate it. They're afraid of getting hung up on. They're afraid of getting asked a question they can't answer. So rather than fighting through it and, practicing, putting in the 20 miles and making your reps so that you automatically get better at it, they let their fear overcome, the ability, their own perception of their ability to succeed, and they quit altogether. This takes some of that out, right? I mean, you're not actually asking for the referral. The machine, the system, the software is asking for the referral, and now all of a sudden it doesn't seem like it's as difficult to do or to get.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. It's just kind of weird, man. It's like I liken it to, when you're back in junior high or high school and you've got that girl that you want to call and you dial the 6 digits of the phone number, but you just can't make your finger press that 7th digit. And then you do, and it rings and you hang up real quick. I mean, all of that, when all you got to do is ask for the date. The worst thing that could be happen is she says no. Okay, you're not interested in me. That's fine. Now I'm going to go on to the next one and the next one and the next one. But, I mean, we run into that same fear in so many different places in our life. Now we have tools to fix all of that, to where we can make it seem like it's coming from us if we do it really, really well, unlike all of the stupid bots on LinkedIn that are absolutely horrendous. But
no, I agree. I think the personalization level that you can achieve right now is just amazing. And I think, and the other thing is that, so being intentional about it, it's not like, oh, boom, I need to ask a referral. You pick up the phone, you need to ask a referral. You can have a system that's doing the work for you, and you're building a relationship. So even with your existing client, it's not like, hey, David, how are you doing? Can you, who could you refer me to today? Or, it's not like that. It's not transactional. It's like checking in with, so you can build sequences. You can, have strategies. I mean, we have this out of the box, like, okay, how are we doing, David? And then move on to a next step. Maybe get a testimonial from you. Maybe ask another question in a couple of weeks, like, hey, what is it about our service that you like, or what would you like to see improve? And then at the end of that process comes the referral, right? But you don't have to sit and plan and send those emails manually anymore. It's all happening, all you need to decide is who's going to go into this strategy. Which of my clients do I want to put in here, and that's it. And then you follow up, obviously, on the action items that come out of it. So if somebody's like, gives you, let's say, a 2 and an NPS, you better pick up the phone, before.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting because it's not like you're going to just pick up the phone and say, hey, now that we've had you as a client for 4 months, can you tell me all your friends and their names and email addresses? Like, you're not going to do that. But it would be natural to send an email, hey, how are things going? Just wanted to check in. And then, boom, they reply back. Things are great, da-da-da-da. Just wanted to make sure that we're executing everything we promised. You're happy with the level of service you've gotten. Boom. Then they come back and they give you a response back. And then now you're involved in a conversation, so it becomes much more natural to ask for the referral. But I mean, man, if you can't use your own clients to get new business, how do you expect cold calling and everything?
Yeah, I mean,
to work?
we're kind of working towards a system where, we don't want to leave no excuses anymore. So basically, the integration with the AMS system comes in. I mean, we can detect, like, when a client signed up, it's been about 4 months, or 5 months since their policy, kicked in. Then, a system like ours would come in and say, hey, hey, David, it's been 4 months since Khuram, signed up as client. Do you want to reach out to him, or do you want to put him in this strategy or that tactic, So that's what, I think we mentioned this earlier, like it's that, augmenting your existing, strategy and work. It's like an assistant that's kind of, there 24 hours for you, doing the work for you. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the biggest thing for me is it helps things not fall through the cracks. Yeah. I mean, more than anything else, I'm going to get my 20 miles in every day. If I have to go out and I have to cold call, I'm going to get my cold call reps in. I'm going to get my telemarketing reps in. I'm going to get my email reps in. It's the one-off things like, hey, it's been 90 days since this person has come on board. Here's your task reminder. It's time for you to pick up the phone and call them and have the conversation.
Exactly.
Those are the things.
No chance you would remember that stuff otherwise.
No, none at all. And I mean, look at how many things. So I'll give you an example of why it's important not only to have a tool like this, but you also need to put yourself in a position. You have to use it when you get it, right? So we have an automation sequence, and we use a service, local traffic marketing, for paid traffic to come to some landing pages that we created. And I had hired those guys, and like 3 weeks in, I'm sitting here shaking my head like, what the heck is going on? I mean, I realize we need a ramp-up time, but this isn't right. Well, guess what? I found out by going into the CRM, we had 27 leads that were sitting in our CRM that we didn't even know that were there. Crazy. Because there was something broken. I don't hold them responsible for that. That's 100% my fault. I should have looked at that every single day. And because it wasn't a habit for me to go in and look at that particular screen, I missed it for a period of probably 2.5 weeks when we had all these leads coming in. Thankfully, people were relatively gracious, and we were able to salvage a good bit of it. But it goes back to what I've been trying to preach from the second we started talking today, and that is just because you have a system doesn't mean your entire agency goes on autopilot. You still need to go in and just like you're driving your car, you got to change the oil. If you don't change the oil, then your engine's going to lock up, and then you can't go anywhere. So make sure you're doing the routine stuff that you need to be doing. Go in. One of the benefits that we have is we've got a great integration between Lightspeed Voice and our CRM system. So when we have our appointments that are calling, all of his calls are recorded and automatically attached to the contact record. As the agency principal, I love the fact that every Friday I can block off an hour of my time and go in and listen to him talk on the phone.
Yeah.
And then I know how to course correct him. So, those are the kinds of things that I think, I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't have a CRM. I mean, I could. I could probably go pull the recordings out of the archives and all of that. But if I wanted to look at specific people, like who did we call but we didn't get an appointment set with, I can run that list, and it's only going to populate. It's going to filter my screen with just those people. So now I can listen to all of those calls, why were they bad? What was the thing that was consistent in them? What could have been said differently? Just like I can pull a report of everybody who we did book an appointment with and see what worked in those. It's not about always doing all the work for you as much as it is doing the work that you shouldn't be doing as a human being and helping you to more intelligently do those tasks that you are required to do. That's it in a nutshell, more than anything else. And, you know, if you're sitting here and you're thinking about this, and the first question that popped into your mind is people are listening is, how much does this cost? Quit listening to my podcast. Don't even listen to me anymore, because that's not the mindset that's going to get you anywhere at all in this industry. You need to be asking yourself, how much can this product make me? How much am I going to get in a return on that investment? And that's a fundamental problem with our industry as a whole, is people with the scarcity mindset that are always looking at cost, and not realizing that they should be looking at revenue, because cost doesn't matter if the revenue's there. It's not good. That cost doesn't change the more money you make. So what does it matter?
Yeah, and it comes down to value as well, right? So you talk about that 1 hour that you kind of like block to listen. I mean, what is the value of I mean, if you discover a fundamental flaw in your sales guys, like they're pitching things in the wrong way, I mean, what is the value of that, right? You might have just course corrected the whole, sales org's, approach to appointment setting, right? So, and you can be very
I can tell you right now, there's an opportunity cost associated with me taking an hour out of my day to sit down and do that. And the opportunity cost is, how much could I make doing something else? Well, the answer is several $1,000s an hour if I'm doing the right activities. So it's worth it. I'm spending time that I could be using to generate a few $1,000s an hour, selling for myself, whatever I could be doing in that time, to go listen to something that, instead of me making a few $1,000s an hour, tens of thousands of dollars in an hour, if we fix the sales process and the revenue comes as a result of that. That's the mindset people need to have. Not, oh my gosh, I'm going to be paying how much a month for this, and now I've got to train. I mean, it's like freaking Eeyore just walked into the lobby of your agency and is complaining
never
about...
Never going to grow like that.
Yeah, never.
Yeah, it comes down to, the sharp and the saw principle from Stephen Covey. I don't know if you know, the 7 habits, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, my thought process is, if that's the way you think, you're going to be out of business in a little while anyhow. Go ahead and reach out to me. I'll be happy to take a look at buying your agency. We'll fix it. Don't worry about it. Well, listen, I want to be respectful of your time, man. We're coming up on the hour. I think we've done a pretty good job of covering what you guys do in your product. Is there anything that I missed or that Kyle missed in asking you questions that you want to get out to everybody, number one? And number two, I want you to tell them how to get a hold of you so that people who are interested in continuing this conversation have the ability to reach out and get their contact record into your CRM so that you can effectively market.
Yeah, sure. And we don't spam people. So I think I think we've covered a lot of stuff. Ultimately, I think we talked about CRM. My vision for the insurance industry is what we're calling like a customer data platform, so where it's going to, or a customer engagement platform, you have all these triggers like in an AMS system. And what we want to do is, based on that, tell the producer or the agent what is the next best thing they can do for a client, for a prospect, or whether it's a referral strategy, so it's not so much about the traditional CRM thinking of like, okay, let's get all of our data in there, let's do some forecasting. I think that's still, thinking about CRM in the old way, but our vision is really a system that is kind of like listening to what's happening around you in, all the other software, and then kind of responding to that and making that frictionless and, as possible. So, adoption, you should not be spending like days and weeks configuring a system, in my opinion. So. And
no, I agree. We're insurance people. We're not CRM developers, right? I mean, quit trying to do it. There was a guy that was in one of the forums I'm in online this morning that was saying, "Where can I go to learn SEO?" And my question is, why do you want to learn SEO? Like, you own an insurance agency. Are you going to start a marketing platform that's going to go do SEO? Because these people are cheap. They don't understand that if they, number one, by and large, I don't care if it's a principal or a producer, very, very rarely in our industry can somebody tell you what an hour of their time is worth. They don't know. They don't know what they work for per hour. That's why they're out chasing accounts that are $2,500 in premium to make $250 for the agency, to make like $100 for themselves, and they chase the account for a week. You just worked a week for $100, man. Come on, go to McDonald's and get a job. You'll make more money. But I mean, you know, that's the problem, is they don't think about that. And so because they don't know how much that their time is worth, they want to take on all of these other things that really they're not qualified to do. And there you have it, man. So now we're going to have Johnny SEO, who's also running an agency, who, you know, it blows my mind. Stay in your lane, people. Focus, focus, focus. If you want to know why people are successful, it's because they understand what they're worth, they don't compromise, and they stay in the lane that they're supposed to be in. And we realize that we're going to outsource the stuff we don't know to people who are highly qualified at what they do. We recorded a podcast earlier today with my buddy Eric Garcia and his partner on his podcast, who is a doctor that is a marital counselor. And they brought up a quote that Eric's dad said that's so profound and yet so simple, like most people's dad's quotes, except for the big cat, and he's extremely complicated. But here's the deal. Pay people for what they went to college for. That's it. You didn't go to college for that. Pay somebody else who did. This guy spent, you know, $100,000 in 4 years of college to understand and know exactly how to solve that problem. You're sitting here thinking you can post in an internet Facebook group how you're going to become an SEO wizard in a matter of a couple of weeks. Here's a fun fact, bud. By the time you learn it, it's going to have changed and you're not going to know the new deal. Google updates that algorithm on such a regular basis that they do that specifically for people like us. They don't want us to know how to do it.
You gotta like, you know, be, you know, what you're saying, stay in your lane, you know, be the expert you are, and just stick to that, I think, you know, and that's definitely true. I think this is, you know, that's one of the reasons, you know, we kind of like founded a CRM that is focused, you know, I mean, it's like a niche within a niche, even like commercial insurance. We think there's, you know, very specific things that we want to, you know, we've learned and we're kind of like, you know, implementing, because we're compounding, you know, all that knowledge. And it's I'm sure you can, you know, like try and use Excel or something like that and use your manual email to do, you know, but the productivity level is nowhere near, you know, what it would be in utilizing something like this or any other, you know, product for that matter. So, and yeah.
Agreed. How do they get a hold of you, man?
We are 20miles.us, so 20miles.us. So, you know, that's where we are.
Got it. People, reach out if you're interested. I am sure that you will benefit from any conversation you have with Khuram. Listen, man, honestly, pleasure having you on. Just sort of threw out the old cast net on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago and said we're looking for InsurTech people to bring onto the podcast. You're the first one that responded and is on, so look forward to airing your episode soon.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, you know. Thank you.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Have a good afternoon.
Okay.
Later.
You've been listening to the Power Producers Podcast. You can follow Killing Commercial Insurance on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want to take your game to the next level, check out our book, The Extra 2 Minutes, and our website, killingcommercial.com.